Welcome, curious souls and seekers of glamour, to the most intimate corner of the web. Welcome to Turkish Spotlight Secrets. Tonight, a breeze from the Bosphorus carries more than perfume and salt. It carries confessions that refuse to stay buried, a melody of truth that broke through the polite noise of the city's brightest circles. Before we slip behind the velvet rope of this tale, a story with the cadence of a romance and the heat of a confrontation, do a small thing that keeps our lights on. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and for our inner circle, the join button is waiting, granting special perks and fueling our relentless chase after what's real. Tap like, warm up those comment fingers, and prepare to take a side. This one will divide the room. Are you ready? Then let's part the curtains. Istanbul changes when night sinks in and the reflections of neon ripple across the strait. It's on those evenings, when the air tastes like secrets and the clinking of crystal tries to drown out the quiet tremors of the heart, that the polished masks slip. What began as just another society gathering, a parade of exquisite fabrics, rehearsed smiles, and conversations too thin to cast shadows, became a stage where something unguarded demanded to be seen. At the molten center of it all stood two figures who, for months, let speculation trace their outline, Barış Arduç and Elçin Sangu. Their armor had been silence, a hush that many misread. Some called it cunning. Others treated it as proof of distance, a pause in a relationship's soundtrack. But last night there was no siege and no surrender, only a decision. A choice to show skin where everyone expected choreography. Their entrance didn't feel like a mere arrival, it felt like a sentence with no commas, only clarity. They stepped through the doorway shoulder to shoulder, unhurried, their fingers linked in a way that invited no decoding. Body language did the shouting their lips refused. We're here. We're together. And we're done pretending it's otherwise. The flashes roared, frantic and white-hot, but it wasn't the light that took people's breath away, it was the quiet aftermath of every click, the stillness that follows a truth finally spoken. Their glances were not the glossy ones chosen for magazines. They were older, fluent in that private language you don't learn, you earn, when you've survived together without witnesses. For a long stretch, they had let others draft their story, sprinkle it with convenient plot twists and tidy cliffhangers. Last night, they took the pen back. Those who hover at their edges insist the low profile wasn't born of fear but of protection. There is a fragile kind of peace you can only keep by refusing to feed the crowd. Yet even quiet has a boundary. There comes a point when dignity refuses to be misfiled. That line was crossed when whispers stopped being curious questions and hardened into verdicts. The harshest of them carried a familiar aftertaste, a well-known businessman from their past, resurfacing like a ghost with an opinion that cut deep, dismissing what they share as nothing but a public relations contraption. The spark became a blaze when a journalist, eyes steady, voice deliberate, asked the question out loud. He invoked the businessman's comments, offered them up like a gauntlet. The sentence fell into the room like iron. Attention snapped tight. You could feel the breath press against the walls. Elçin's smile, usually warm and cinematic, shifted. Not into absence, but into resolve. It gained an edge, the kind that doesn't slash but refuses to bend. She inhaled, counted her words, and stood her ground by simply being immovable. When she answered, it wasn't a speech. It was a line drawn cleanly. She would not let her life be reduced to a marketing exercise. Her decisions, she said, come from a mind that knows its worth and a heart that insists on choosing for itself. To belittle the man she loves by describing him as a prop in her narrative isn't just lazy, it's an insult to what she's fought for as a woman and an artist. And to you, dear friends of Turkish Spotlight Secrets, I pose the same questions that trembled in that room. How many times have we seen genuine tenderness crushed beneath the machine of show business cynicism? Was Elçin right to answer as steady as stone, or should silence have been her shield yet again? Tell me in the comments, I want to read the pulse of your thoughts. If this careful unpacking speaks to you, back us with a super thanks or a membership. Your voice means the world here. Back inside those buzzing walls, her words still hung in the air like a note that refuses to fade. Sensing the weight pressing on her shoulders, Barış stepped in, not to eclipse her, but to stand beside her with a kind of protection you don't rehearse. He took the mic and explained what their quiet had been, a choice to protect serenity, not bait to raise numbers. People fill silence with the easiest stories, he said, and stamp labels on what they're too impatient to understand. This bond wasn't calculated. It sprouted in imperfect hours, when both of them were a little broken, far from the front row of any spotlight. And what he cannot tolerate is watching that vulnerability be stripped and spun into a publicity slogan. Elçin picked up that thread and pulled it taut. With a voice that was calm but carried steel, she refused the premise with one line that the internet devoured in minutes: we refuse to be anyone's clickbait. The room felt the shift, the kind that happens when a boundary is not argued, but declared. She didn't stop there. She made it known that she has never been a shadow trailing after anyone, least of all the person who holds her hand. Everything she has, she built brick by brick, with the grace of talent and the muscle of persistence. If she stands beside someone, it isn't because it performs well. It's because it's right. Anyone who reduces her to a caricature in search of borrowed light hasn't looked past the headlines to the human being who refuses to be flattened. Beyond the syllables, their gestures told the story better than 1,000 interviews. A thumb smoothing along knuckles. A shoulder leaning in that tiny fraction that says, "I'm here." Soft laughter bubbling up through tension and scattering it. Even those most committed to doubt went quiet. Truth doesn't always announce itself with trumpets. Sometimes it is two people forgetting the crowd, even as cameras stare. They began to leave, and just before the door could close on the evening, one reporter took a final shot. "So this is official now?" Barış didn't flinch. He said they never hid. They simply refused to narrate their lives for other people's consumption. If clarity was needed, it had been offered. Elçin finished with a smile that softened the edges of the scene. "They are happy," she said simply, "and that is the part that matters." Online, the reaction blew open. Applause, suspicion, theorizing. Some praised the clarity that can't be faked. Others clung to the same old script that everything is calculated. But no one could deny the ferocity with which they shielded their bond. And now, in the echo, a lingering question: what will that businessman do next? Expand on his words? Reframe them? Or vanish into quiet and let the heat fizzle out? Whatever the move, last night marked a point of no return. Picture them leaving, no masks, no caveats, fingers woven, backs straight. Sometimes the most radical act is to keep holding hands until the noise falls away. So tell me, my dear viewers of Turkish Spotlight Secrets, are we watching the prologue of a new era for this pair, or are the shadows of the past already tapping on the window? Did Barış's steadiness and Elçin's fire persuade you? I want your boldest theories below. This channel breathes with your curiosity and your support. If this journey into the tender heart of Istanbul's glittering night spoke to you, hit subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss what comes next. And for those who savor the deeper cut, the join button is there to help us stay independent, unafraid, and always listening. That's all for tonight from Turkish Spotlight Secrets. Keep your light bright and your eyes open. Until the next unveiled truth.